Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to Platform Analytics Academy. We're going to go ahead and get started. We are at the top of the hour. So as I said, good afternoon or good morning, good evening, wherever you may be in the world. Thank you for joining today. Go through some logistical things and we'll get directly into it. So as usual, these are always for you. We try as best we can to bring fresh ideas and better understanding and practical guidance to you as much as possible. These sessions are definitely recorded and they'll be out. The link to them will be out in the community later on this afternoon. And of course, they are out on our YouTube channels as well. Q&A, please ask as many questions as you would like. If you could put those in the Q&A part of Zoom. That way, some of the panelists that are here are able to answer questions while we're going through this demo and presentation. Please ask any questions that you would like. If they are unrelated to the topic that we're going over, we'll try as hard as we can to get to those when we are done with this. If you have a question about something that's going on in the presentation and demo, feel free to ask that as well. If we can stop the demo to answer that question, we will. But like I said, some of the panelists may be able to answer that as well. So safe harbor notice. I don't know that there is anything in this, but just be safe. We always like to make sure that we show this to you. So please don't make any buying decisions or anything of that sort based off of the information that we share with you today. My name is Thomas Davis, and I am the host and also a presenter, and also have Isaac with us today. Isaac is going to be doing some talking as well and some demoing of the content that we're discussing today. And as usual, I have my co-workers with me as well, Dan, Tara, and Adam. So again, they'll be available to answer questions, and they may, of course, come off of mute as well to ask and answer questions as well. So as the title is, today we're going to talk about analytics automation. So this is something that we've been talking about for a while, and it may be familiar to you or may not, but hopefully after this, you'll be able to think of some different things that you can actually do with some of the things that are inside of ServiceNow that are related to PA. Our agenda today is we're going to talk about the event registry. Again, maybe that's something that you're aware of or you're not, so we're going to show you that. And then we're going to actually talk about the PA events that are there and available. And we'll talk about Flow Designer because we're going to use both the events and Flow Designer in our demo. And then we'll have some useful links and, of course, a Q&A. So again, if you have questions, feel free to ask as we're going through that. So as I said, the first thing that I want to talk about today is the event registry. So the event registry lists events the system recognizes. You can use these events to automate activities. You can use them in scripts, script actions, or notifications. They are there available. And here you can see where you actually would go to access those. So if you just select all and then event registry, they're under the system section of PA, and you can click directly on that. So there are some PA ones that are out there, and these are the ones that are there. So I don't know that we necessarily need to read through all of these, but I did make sure that I put a description in here. But this is kind of things that are there once certain things happen inside of the instance. Then there's certain events that can be triggered to do, certain things. So, for example, some of the ones that we're going to use in the use cases today are, the PA job DC ended with error. So this is when a data collection job ends, but there's an error. So what can I do with that? So obviously, if you're familiar with data collection jobs, you can go and you can look at the job log and you can see when something has ended in an error. And then you can also see, what the error was. And the same thing for a warning. But the question is, what else could you do with that? Could you trigger something else to happen? Could you create something that would make, something else happen based off of that particular event ending? And the answer is yes, you can do that with Flow Designer. And what we're going to do today is we're going to take 2 or 3 of these and actually show you where we can throw those into Flow Designer and create some other things that happen. I won't give it away yet because I don't want to take Isaac's thunder away, but it'll actually trigger some other things to happen. So again, it gives you that automation, right, by using the tools that we have inside of the platform to do some other things. So there are 13 here. These are the PA ones, and these come out of the box there, but you can obviously create more events, and you can attach business rules to those events and do some other things within that. But these are ones that, target and threshold, notification when a target or a threshold has been reached, or, that the target has been completed or something like that. And again, you have KPI signals in here. So if a new signal has been created, you can do something with that. Breakdown. So if a breakdown has been deleted, what can you do with that action when that actually happens? Or an indicator has been deleted. So maybe you want to make sure that you're controlling the governance around your platform. So if someone has access to delete an indicator, maybe you want to know about that. Maybe you want the notification when something like that happens, things all of that sort. So again, these events are in the platform. These are out of the box. Other ones can be created as well, but these are the ones that we have, like I said, created that you can do some actions on them. So with that, real quickly, I just want to touch Flow Designer. If you're not familiar with it, we're not going to go in great detail of, how the Flow Designer works and things of that sort. We really just want you to understand that for today's demo and what we're actually going to try to do, we're just going to use a Flow Designer and we're going to create some flows where you're actually going to take those same events and use them as triggers for other things. So obviously there are some ServiceNow docs that are out there that talk about Flow Designer, and here is a look of what it would look like when you went into it. But the other thing is our own Adam did a session a couple years ago, which was really awesome, called Burst Reporting, Leveraging Workflows and Analytics. And in there, he actually did some really fancy things with workflows as well. Not necessarily with the events, although he may have done some in that, but he was just making some things happen directly with workflows, and then, providing some analytics on that as well. So again, there are some very useful things that you can do with both Flow Designer and also the events and many other things using Flow Designer. So if workflows are not something that you have dabbled in yet to create, you should definitely check that out if you have the access to do that. So today, real quickly, we have 3 use cases that we're going to talk through and demo. And what they are is, when a data collection completes with warnings, we will automatically generate a task with a priority of 3 and assign the appropriate assignment group. So again, this is one of those things, right? So if you're someone that is responsible for looking at those data collections, maybe in the past, the only thing that you've ever done is literally went to the jobs and looked at those and then looked at the job logs. And, that was just something that you had to do. Well, here we're going to show you where you can actually create a task that'll let you know that one of those things have had that issue, whether a warning or an ending. And then the second one, we'll take one that actually ended with an error, and we'll create a task and assign a priority 1 of that and assign that to the appropriate assignment group as well. So, and then the last one, whenever a new KPI signal will be created with a PA data collection job completes, we're going to actually show you where you can automate and know that that is actually happening. So I'll stop before I pass that over to Isaac, although he may answer some of the questions in the demo of some of the questions that are coming in, but I'll ask my panelists, are there anything that we should answer now?
Nope. I was just posting a reminder in the chat. I know not everybody understands. We don't really catch the chat as much as we monitor the Q&A. Yep. So if you can remember to post your questions in the Q&A, that would be fabulous, because that's what we kind of focus on. So the chat sometimes gets overlooked if there's, multiple conversations going on. So we don't want to miss anything you have to ask.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Tara. Sorry. So let me look at this one from Stephen. Does end with error trigger on node failure? Currently, that will result in a record with a status error in PA job logs, but not in PA job log rows. So let us get through this demo, Stephen, and then we can kind of come back to that question and see what we can do with that. So with that, Isaac, if you are ready, I give you the floor, and we look forward to seeing the great stuff that you're going to show.
Great. Thank you very much, Thomas. I'll start sharing screen. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Hi, Stephen. It's been quite some time that we talked, and you are, with the example that we're going to show, we do catch the errors on the PA job logs. We don't catch them on the rows. So I'm not sure why you always go to the rows to find out if there was an error, because at the end of every collection, as we will see also during the process, the state of the record changes to either resulted in errors or with warnings. So I'm going to demonstrate that now. As Thomas mentioned earlier, we have all these events that are created out of the box by us, by our developers, but you also have the opportunity to create your own events whenever you want with a simple business rule. I understand the topic might be a bit technical, but I think please keep in mind that this can create really a lot of good use cases and problems to be solved even for the business users. So please keep in mind that with the events, you can sort really a lot of problems because they are queued. They do not create, if everything is created correctly, technical problems or performance issues on your instance, as long as, of course, you are being careful. Walking through now a bit on the events. So I'm going to demonstrate, I'm just going to show you where you can find these events, and then I will walk you through how things show in the instance so that you understand where each record is. So the first part is what Thomas already showed. So there is the event registry. You need to be an admin to reach to this table, and these are all the events. Well, there are really a lot of events. These are all the events that start with PA, so there are really a lot of them. And the ones that we are really interested in, as Thomas mentioned, are the ones that are related to the data collection ended with warning and with error. These are the two ones that we're going to talk to, also about a new signal being created. So this is the place where we just say that this is an event. Now, what happens when that event is created is something that we provide out of the box, usually what needs to be done. But at the same time, you can create your own flows. What do you want to happen? Let me navigate so that you can see where I'm going to. So if you reach out to Flow Designer in the platform, yeah, so you get the list of all the flows that are being created by us, but at the same time, you can create or even customize what we created. I will walk you through one of these. It's something simple, as Thomas mentioned. So we are creating just a case task when a job fails. And why do we create a case task? Because the collection jobs usually run outside business hours. So, well, you might not be there. And the next day you come and you see a dashboard that doesn't have any PA data on it. Now, how important is that? Of course, all business users will not be able to see their data, and that causes a big problem. And that's why your admin team that handles this analytics needs to be aware of this, and they need to actually jump into it and work on it. So here in the Flow Designer, I will walk you through the steps of creating this simple version of it. But I will take a bit more time with this one, and then the next I will demo. So the table where we create these events is the sys event table. And well, the condition is pretty simple. Name is, and this is the name of the event that we just created. So this event is generated every time a data collection completes, and it has an error in it. So this is how we know that we found the actual data collection that resulted in error. Then the next step that I created for this use case is that, well, we want to go and find out the logs and understand which job log is related to this one, right? And how do we do that? And for that, I'm going to walk you through to the event log so that you will understand. Sorry, put the wrong conditions. Okay, so as you can see here, there are some errors and warnings. So I will just open one. So here we see the name of the event. There is the table where that event is linked to. That is something that you define in your event itself. This is the instance, which is the sys-ID of that records on the PA job logs table. Then we have the time that is processed, because the events, although you can create them instantly, they are not being executed on the fly. There is a queue, and And whenever a worker is free, it picks up those events and it executes whatever needs to be done by it. And this is the URL of the job. And this is something that you will see how we use it later on. And there are these two fields, which are the parameters, where you can, when you create an event, you can add some valuable information into it. And then on the right side, we have the user ID, the username. This is Adam that was running this job, and how long it took to execute this event. And this is very important. You have to keep all your events executions to be really, really low, because if something runs more than 2 or 3 seconds, all the rest of the event will wait for it. So you have to be quite careful. And this is the state of the event. So if it was processed or not, or it ended up in error or transferred to a different node. So having all this information here, going back to our flow, here I'm just searching in PA job logs, and all I'm doing is I pick up this sysid and I put it in the filter, and that will result in the record that actually the PA job logs that had the error. And moving forward, then, as Thomas mentioned earlier, the idea here is to create a high priority task so that people in here in the analytics admin, which is the assignment group that we assigned it to, will be aware and they'll have to work on it urgently, right? That's why it's a P1. You have a whole dashboard, for example, you might have a dashboard that is your CIO or your CO is using, and it didn't get updated with yesterday's data. That's why this is a quite high priority, of course, based on your own use cases and how you want to address this type of situations. You can configure anything you want. The most important thing that you need to be aware here is that I didn't write a single line of code, right? There is the opportunity to write, but I didn't write anything. Everything was done with the mouse and just typing the names. And just to show an example, I will move to the table where we are having the tasks, and I will just open one task. So here you can see it is assigned, high priority, it's open, assigned to is not there, and then we know the job. And here you can see, for example, in the short description, we have all this information of the date, the number of errors, number of warnings, and execution time that it took. So this way, at least the admin will be aware, and then they can take steps to solve this problem. Now, before moving to the next, okay. Okay, I think, Stephen, I'll take that question a bit later on. I will continue with the demo for now, because it's quite long to read. Okay, that is the first part. The second part, for the warnings, let me go back to my... For the warnings is something similar, and I did it on purpose similar here because I would expect someone to ask me a question, to be honest. So if for warnings, the only thing you need to change is actually assign it to a different group here, or the priority is not high priority anymore, it's moderate because, well, it's a warning, so it's not that important. Something happened, but someone needs to investigate it. But as I said, this is based on how you want to handle your processes, or it might be even related to the job itself. You might have jobs that have indicators that are very important and some less important, if that could be the case. And of course, now I created two simple flows here, but well, because Flow Designer is so simple, you could actually do both with one. So there is a simple if statement, as you can see here, and everything is created with the mouse. So I will walk you through how you can create this flow. So I'm going to create a new just demo flow so that we can see how everything gets created and how simple it is. So there is a tool here where you can walk through every field, and so that you can understand how the flow is created. So Now, in the trigger section, you need to find out when do you want this flow to be executed. So what is the trigger? And here, as we said earlier, it is the creation of a record on the sysevent table. And we need to add filters. And the filter is that the name of the event is error, or for example, each one, if we're going to create the second the use case where both of the jobs are, or both of the different types of events are generated. And that's it. So now we know there are more advanced options here. So if you want this to run, if it's an interactive or non-interactive, I will not go through all the details. There is quite a lot of information in our doc and in our community how you can handle it. But if you have questions, please feel free to share. So now we know when this event will be triggered, and we did it. And now the second question is, so what do we want to do? And here in the flow logic, we can say, for example, if it was an error, and then we can say here, so what does it mean it was an error? That means that from the event record, because we configured it in the trigger, that's how this pop-up populates. If the name of the event is error, second, paste, and that is the condition, and we are done. So now we have the condition, and what we need to do is what will happen if it is an error. And here you can actually create a record, create a task, delete, or do any other type of events. As you can see, there is a really big list of actions that you can do, and you can even create your own actions if you want. But that is a separate discussion, and not for now. Okay, so we'll create a record, as we said earlier, and then we'll just specify which table do you want to create. For example, you want to create a new task, and then you can just set values. Just to show you how simple it is, you say the short description. This button here gives you the opportunity to write scripts if you really love them. I used to love them, but since I got this easiness of clicking with my mouse, I stopped liking scripts. Scripts are good, but I think with this we make our lives much more easier for everyone. And yeah, then we refer to the event record, and we can actually combine the text, and we can say that this. Okay, there was this event created, for example, and then we can pick up from here, from the event record, the name. And then what we can do, we can add in the flow logic and else. So if it was an error, do this. If it is not an error, then do something else and continue with your flow. So the moment you complete, I will not go through all the steps now, but the moment you complete with all the steps that you want in your flow, you need to save it, of course. You have the option to activate it instantly. So from the moment that you click activate, that version of the flow is running, but you also have the opportunity to test it. So you can see, for example, if I select a record of .dc error, and you select one error, you can say run test, and you can actually see the result, how what would the outcome be. So it says your condition here evaluated to true because I selected an event that had error, and then actually it says it will execute this core action, which is to create the task. This way, in general, you can create any type of flows that you want for any event that is currently available in the platform. But also, as I said, you can create your own events and create your own process and any type of records, either creation or updates or send notifications or anything else you would like to do. For the second part of the demo, I'm going to execute the job. And this is the job that will generate a signal. I'm going to close this. And we have to give it a few more seconds. Now, I know there were a lot of sessions earlier about, there were a couple of sessions about KPI signals. And what is a signal? Signal is a statistic analysis that we do in our processes and in our indicators, which tells us if the value of the indicator is statistically expected or not. So the data collection completed. Let me check the event log. And we got a new signal. And this new signal that was created, now we can go to KPI details. Okay, and now you can see here in KPI details, you can see the notification that there is a signal generated, which is this signal here. But what I did with the flow is not only create this. What I also did is, this is something that comes from the data collection itself. What is being created is actually, for this use case, I created a case, and just to show how we can easily create any type of record. It's not a usual use case. I just wanted to demonstrate. And as you can see here, for example, I added in the activity a link to the KPI. So when you are here, you can actually open it and navigate directly to KPI details. You don't need to go anywhere else. But the main reason why I did this is also to show that, so this case tells us that there is a new signal. And here I can collaborate, me as a process owner with Abigail, and I can say, hey, I want to discuss this issue with Thomas and with Isaac. And I can start the discussion and say, hey, guys, we have a new signal. Let's investigate, right? And then everyone can collaborate in this part here, and then they can talk and find the solution and then solve this case. As I said, the case is not the extremely best example, but I wanted to demonstrate that discuss is there, the sidebar, so that you can actually collaborate with the rest of the colleagues in the organization so that you can troubleshoot and find out what actually happened, or if nothing happens. Going back to KPI details, when you do get a signal, you can just dismiss it, right? And you can say, well, nothing happened. It was a public holiday, for example, and that's why the value is low. And when you click confirm, KPI signal runs for the next, checks for the rest of the period, and then it found another outlier. For this outlier, we don't generate an event because it is created by a user action, and you can see instantly the outcome. So our case will not be created for this new signal that we just saw. The main reason, of course, why we came here is just to understand the events. So, and the events in PA, we try to add as many as we can in many different places so that you can add your own processes in it. You can customize what we generate, and you can actually send a notification the way you wanted to send it, or change, or create a record, or update someone, or trigger anything you want in our platform. So you have endless possibilities when you're using our Flow Designer with the events that are triggered in the platform. And that was, I hope, the quick version of it. So, are there any questions? I see there are some comments in the chat, and also
Yeah,
some.
so the only question at this point is the same one that Stephen had, which was the
Right.
LinkedIn one. So where he's talking about nodes and events and all that stuff. So I know that you had said that you wanted to go at that one. So maybe we can get that one, and then we'll see if any other questions come in.
I think I think we might want to take Stephen off mute for this one
Sure.
because it might be a conversation. What do you think?
Yeah,
It-
that might make it a bit easier. Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
yeah. Thank you, Tara.
All right, Stephen, you should be able to talk if you're there.
Hey folks, you able to hear me?
Yep.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello. So first of all, Isaac, you're my hero. So thank you for showing up. This might might not be a question that really hits what you guys are demoing today. I saw that there was some new stuff around logging and got excited because we've been having some problems around logging. But basically the issue is that certain types of events that lead to errors, the one that I'm just neck deep in right now is node failover. You do get the error status on the PA job logs table, but
Yeah.
you don't get any verbose logging whatsoever that comes from PA job log rows, because that's normally where it's like, hey, why did this fail? And what's the sysid of the thing that failed? And what's the error limit if I'm going to go, do process of elimination? So the issue that we've been seeing is that, well, if there's no logs that are helpful, maybe it's node failover. And where that's a problem is if there's no logs that are helpful, maybe it's a security event, right? Because when things start running outside of their scheduled windows, all the admins squint at it real hard and say, you're not supposed to do that. Why are you running 2 hours late? And then there's also no logs of what ran. If it's a node failover, there's no logs of what ran the event. Was this a system triggered event? Was this a individual user triggered event? So it just gets very fuzzy very quickly. So I was just wondering if since Isaac's here and he's a much bigger brain on all of this than almost anybody I know, and certainly than myself, if he had some clever way of how to disambiguate the lack of verbose logs of, oh, you're just a node failover. That's not great, but it's not the end of the world. It's just the system doing its job, versus, oh, mysterious things are happening. Call an admin to start locking down roles, right? So that was kind of the broader context there. And if that's way out of scope for today, no problem. We'll talk about it another time. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Stephen. No, it's a very interesting question. To be honest, I have in my mind a couple of ways to capture it, but I'm not sure if it's going to capture all the different use cases, which is one is the node transfer. So for example, we fail over to your backup side if we need to do some maintenance, for example, or your node, for example, run out of memory. So there are many different use cases why a node will not complete the job. And yes, that's something I have to look into 2 or 3 different use cases, and maybe I can reach out separately or even present it in a next Academy session. But it's a very good point, and that's something all the admins, not only PA admins, even the admins of the platform would be very interested in finding out, because it's not only the collection jobs, it's all the jobs in the platform that will run a bit later. And if everything is in a tight schedule, then it can cause quite a lot of problems. It is a very good question, but I promise I will come back to it, Stephen. I will not try to.
No worries. Didn't mean to hijack you today. This is still good stuff. Thank you, sir.
No, thank you. Thank you for the question. Very, very good question.
All right. Thanks, Isaac and Stephen, for that. I don't see any other questions at this point, but I think I would like to call on Adam, because I feel like Adam, this is some stuff that's near and dear to him. So I'd love to have him share something if he has anything.
Great. Isaac, great session. I really appreciate it. And I think the thing I want to add, as we go back, we don't want you to have to script or have to create flows and do things, but you know your business better than we do. And so that's why we wanted to make sure that we're exposing and talking about how you do these things. If it's a really common use case, we're going to try and do it out of the box, like the KPI signals, the notifications, and things go on. But we want to make sure that we're not limiting you. It'll be great to see some of the things in the community about things that you want to do or things in the idea portal. I think it'd be great as well. As I'd like this to happen. But there's always going to be use cases where you're further along than we are. Your business is maybe a little bit more specific than some of our other customers. Whatever the case may be, you can do it. Whether you're creating events, listening to the events we drop, using flows, and I'm recovering scripting. I love ServiceNow on what we can do with scripting, but I completely agree with Isaac. Flows are so much better. I'm glad that he showed in Flow Designer the debugging information. It is so much easier to create, to debug. I do create my own actions when I wanted to do other things, but then I can easily reuse those by using Flow Designer. And we can also be using decisions and process automation designer, just kind of there's no limit to what we can do. But I want to encourage you.
You're absolutely right, Adam. And if we start using also task intelligence, for example, you can avoid having all the assignment groups and the priorities. Everything can come from machine learning. You can actually do really a lot of, you can enhance your process so much that it can actually solve itself, depending on the case, of course. Yeah.
It's great. And so whether it's a use case that we're not supporting, that's very specific to what you do in your organization, or there are some use cases that are common, but there's so many variations, we can't build it kind of successfully with so many options as working on other things. But you can come in and go, no, if there is a PA job that fails, I want a task created to go to this person. Do I want to, when a new indicator is created or a new breakdown is added or removed, I want to make sure I have a really clean log of that, because it's really important. Or and you're not just doing generic things, but the events allow you to look at what happened, which indicator happened, which KPI signal breached. So I notify or take the right action for certain indicators, but not other ones. Just limitless on what you want to do with Flow Designer and Decision Builder. It's incredibly easy to do. You just have to know that it's there. And so thank you for putting the session together, for showing us that. And as you're doing this, I would love to see your questions in the community. Feel free to tag Isaac. He'll be happy to answer your questions. Maybe me too, but Isaac will love to answer. And as you're thinking about things to go, hey, this seems really useful. Why wouldn't everybody do it? Make sure you're putting those in the idea portal. Let us know. Give us your feedback on how we make it better for you. But the goal is that we automate everything. I don't want to see any, especially for those of us who understand the value of in-platform analytics. I don't want to be managing in-platform analytics in spreadsheets and PowerPoint. We can do this all in the instance, and we can take advantage of the full power we have with ServiceNow.
Absolutely. Thank you, Adam. Great points, definitely. So we do have 20 minutes or so. So if and I see that there's still quite a few people here. So here is an opportunity. If you have a question about this, please add that into the Q&A. But if you have a question about anything else that's, platform analytics related, here's an opportunity for you to ask away. There's some really great gurus that are on the call. So maybe we'll give it a minute or so. Go ahead, Adam.
So as those come in, I forgot, and I don't mean to steal your thunder if it comes in later, but we are in 2023, which means that Knowledge 2023 is coming up. Yep. And as we're talking about Flow Designer and workflow automation and analytics, there's going to be some great stuff, some great sessions, some great labs covering related things. If you haven't taken a step into workflow automation and Flow Designer, there's some great sessions in the Platform Academy. We have the link out there for you, one of our sister academies. There are great courses in Now Learning. As much as you want to learn, the developer program has some great stuff in it as well. And Knowledge is going to have some amazing labs in there as well. So if you haven't looked at Flow Designer and you're still comfortable with scripting, you need to look at Flow Designer and how that works. And 2023 is a great year to do that.
And to remind everyone, Knowledge is all in one place again this year, back to the way it was before COVID. So we'll all be together in under one roof. So it'll be a great time to get together and collaborate and chat.
Definitely. And it wasn't thunder, but you and Tara did steal my slide that I'm going to talk about later on. That's okay. That's all right. We went ahead and got it done. And I think, it is exciting to know that it is all under one roof, and that's exciting. Of course, it's in Vegas. So, yeah. So, I'm really surprised that with the amount of people we have, there's no PA questions or anything like that. Here we go.
Thomas, if I can.
Sure. Go ahead, Isa.
Yeah, I will start sharing my screen a bit. Maybe for Stephen, it's not a complete answer. So there is a table in the platform where we have all the nodes that are currently running in your instance, and we have the date that they got updated and their status. So if something changes here, I would highly recommend you to use a flow to pick up this change. And then you'll be able to understand if something happened. Of course, it requires a bit more testing than what I just did in a few seconds. But I believe from here, you can see when a node goes offline and another one comes online, then at least you will know that a node restarted, and that can explain the delay in your whole process. That was a quick hijack. Sorry about that.
No, it's not hijacking, man. It's just free form. So if you have an answer, that's definitely a good thing. So, all right. So we had one came in, VA dashboard, how to build a KB breakdown. It is blank. Maybe some context around that, unless.
Yeah, I think we could use a little bit more context on that. Are we talking about like the knowledge article being the breakdown choice, or I'm not quite sure. So if you could, Yamping, so I don't know if we can maybe bring him off mute here briefly too.
Yep, I just allowed him to talk, so he can, if he's willing to talk, please unmute and let us know what's going on.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's in the virtual agent, and we were in Tokyo, even in the Rome. It's KB breakdown, which is from the OOB, which is blank. So I don't know how, like others, we already we apply the virtual agent and data is displayed quite well, but only the KB breakdown, we don't know how to. How should we do it because this virtual agent dashboard is like ServiceNow protected. Even my business wants to just, we don't know how to do it. They just like remove it from the dashboard, but we won't be able to do it. And we don't want to show business this. It's just like no data available. So we want to do something with it, but I don't know how. Well, it seems like a KB breakdown is we do not use the KB database as a deflection because we do not go that level. Which we just like if people do a search like AI search and served. And if they say, okay, this helpful, and it will be like we have a search served and the AI search. That's in the deflection pattern dashboard. Yeah, it's one of the widget, which looks good. But KB breakdown, we do not track like, okay, this KB helped or that KB helped. We don't know, what KB gonna be bring up. So this one, it just stays there. We have a story for that, but it just stays here. We don't know what to do with it. In OOB, it's like KB breakdown. It's blank.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone has other thoughts as well, but I think we might need to try to find a virtual agent resource to get in touch with, because those different groups are the ones that actually build out their out of the box dashboard content. So we don't always have a lot of insight without digging into. So we'd have to look at your specific scenario to try to, I think, to try to figure that out. But otherwise, I think we could probably try to see if we can find a virtual agent resource that we can get you in touch with.
Well, the two options I'd put in, one, I'd put the question in the community. Make sure you include some screenshots. You'll probably get the answer pretty quickly if you do that. And then we have our virtual agent academy. I would ask them. I think Thomas has a slide of all the other ones, but I believe at sn.work/academies, you'll get all of them. You'll find them in the community. Their session would probably be a good one to do that. And then I think we'll take a note to go, we probably want to do a session on reporting on virtual agent. Might be helpful all around to go over what's there and do that joint session with us, because you might run into an issue where the virtual agent team doesn't get the breakdown question, and obviously the performance analytics team doesn't understand the VA question, so we can get together and solve that. But to get the quickest answer right now, I'd post it in the community, and then if you join one of the virtual agent academies, you probably can ask that question there while we put together a better session.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just searched the community for the KB breakdown wise. A few people asking the same question, but I don't get really the solution there. I see the question over there. I don't know.
I think, just like Adam said, with you asking a question or seeing multiple people ask that question in the community, a great thing to be would to jump on one of their academy calls and ask that directly in the academy where they can get you an answer.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, and Adam, you're typing an answer to a question there. So
yeah, the question came in, and I will type the answer to come in, but I'll talk about it. Where do we get started? What courses do we recommend? And there are no specific courses on using flows, and what we're talking about is one of the reasons we do this session. There's no specific course on it. It's all the same. Flow Designer is the same, whether you're using it for ITOM, for analytics, it's all the same. And I'll tell a story since we have a minute. I got a question earlier this week about how do I know who's viewing attachments? How do I know who's viewing attachments? I want a log of each person who's downloaded an attachment. And I don't think that comes out of the box. I'm not aware of it showing me the report of who's downloaded which attachments. And the idea being, look, if nobody's downloaded this attachment in 6 months, we can purge it. How do you do it? Well, the way I knew how to do it was I went and looked at the event registry. Thomas and I were looking at this session last week, and I'm like, I wonder if there's an event. And I went, there's an attachment.read event, which is extremely similar to report.view, which is an event. We looked at the PA events, but there's some reporting events as well about when reports are viewed. Attachment is there. It has the event, says which attachment's viewed. And so the solution I was able to provide was we do the exact same thing that we're doing with the report view event. Report view event is where it updates report stats to let you know when reports, how many reports are viewed, what the performance is. If we look at report stats and widget stats, it's driven off of a report view event. We have a post that I don't know if we did an Academy session on it about tracking the individual users who view reports, where we did a lot of these same things, where we looked at the events and then just added a new script listener. Or this was old in the olden days, so we did a script listener, which is script. Instead, I would use a flow to say when this event is detected, fire this flow. And whether I'm looking at report views, I'm looking at KPI signals, I'm looking at attachment reads, Flow Designer is the same. Everything is the same. And so as we're looking for things, make sure we're looking at what do I want to do, and does it do that? Is there an out-of-the-box solution for it? And if not, is there something else in ServiceNow that does something similar? Because I can just copy that. I can at least look at how they do it, and I can do it the same way. So you don't need to take any special courses for this, but make sure you do take the Flow Designer course. In Now Learning, there's a ton of courses. There's a lot of great previous knowledge sessions there as well. And a lot of just kind of individual things. The developer program at developer.servicenow.com does some amazing videos. They have a lot of webinars that go on as well that will walk you through things. So whether you want to learn Flow Designer, which is kind of daunting, or you want to learn how to do something specific, I think for me, I like to take an intro class, spend an hour, kind of get the basics and shown around. And then I'm just going to search the developer site, search the community for how do I do this? You will find an amazing number of resources. Just how do I do, this one specific thing? The better you describe it, the easier it's going to be. And then leverage the community. The developer community is as active or more active than the analytics one. You get questions in minutes, maybe hours, but there are lots of people looking at things. So when you write a good question with screenshots and describe the problem, you're going to get an answer very quickly and get you on your way. And with that, I'm not actually going to type all that in because apparently I talked for a long time. But make sure you check out what's in Now Learning, which has the previous knowledge sessions. Come to Knowledge if you can. Check the developer program, the developer site. Lots of great content there. And then we have a few posts and blogs in previous sessions. Thomas talked about it. The burst reporting one's a great overview, walking you through end to end on what you can do. And then if you look at the how do I view dashboard stuff, how do I track dashboard views and report views, similar concepts as well. Now, those were based on scripting, not Flow Designer, and I would definitely do it in Flow Designer today. But there's lots of great examples out there in the community.
Okay, great. So we did have one come in, and Adam, I know you have spoken to this before, but we're currently evaluating the tables we use in our instance and archiving those with excess of 1 million records. The PA scores table is one of these that has a lot of records, obviously. Is there any best practice or recommendation on archiving as it relates to performance analytics? Is there a point where we may encounter performance because of the amount of data that we gather based on indicators, et cetera?
One, don't archive it using the archiving. The PA scores table, it should be scores tables. I'm hoping we're on the PA scores L1 and L2 tables, not the main. The PA scores table, the singular. One table that has a plural name, PA scores, is the older architecture. There's a new architecture, and I say newer, it's been out for several years with PA scores L1 and L2. It shrinks the size an amazing amount. If you are using scores and you are putting data in scores, take a look and you can search the docs for the migration tool. If you want, you can put a case in, but there's an automated migration process. And if you have any questions, put a case in to help you do that to get to the new tables. When we are using L1 and L2, and there's still a lot of records, that's still okay. We don't use archiving. We do not use the ServiceNow archiving tool because archiving is not archiving, but deletion is already built in with the data retention. So every indicator, you're able to set the retention. There are the global retention policy. Please correct me if I'm making this up, by the way, if I have this wrong, but there are the global retention policies, which are I think 2 years is the normal retention policy. But 2 years for daily scores, I think we keep it for 2 years and 5 years for monthly. You can change those for your settings, and then per indicator or indicator source, I believe you can even override those to make them longer or shorter. Definitely shorter. That's how you want to do it, because that way it keeps it nice and clean to come through. And having data from 7 years ago isn't super actionable. We want to be actionable. But don't use, I would say, don't use archiving. The ServiceNow archiving, using just the cleaning that comes through, because you can't restore like you would before. There's some special things about PA scores. That being said, space can be an issue at some point. Performance is not. Performance is really not an issue. The only way you're accessing the scores is through the PA API, whether you know it or not. You're using a PA API. We're not using glide record as normal, and it is highly indexed. Izak, actually, who's on here, spent a lot of time and a lot of thought making sure that the way we get the data is always optimized. It's amazingly fast. There's no out-of-the-box use case where you are scanning all of those records. And if you were scanning 100 million records, that takes some time, no matter how fast you do it. PA scores are always primary key lookups. Izak, you want to tell me all the things I said wrong?
No, you're absolutely correct. I think one thing I can add only to Clinton's question is I read that you have 81 million records. It doesn't matter how many you have. The question is, how long do you want to see your analytics on your dashboards? If you want to see your trends for 1 year or 2 years, you can configure your indicators accordingly. But as Adam said, reach out to support to help you in this. But be ready to answer that question, because support can tell you how to delete, but you need to know the period that you want to keep your scores for.
Isaac, in your opinion, I mean, I'll say 80 million scores is fine. If you need that data, it's not too much, right? No. If you said 81 billion, we may have a talk, yeah. But 81 million.
Yes,
yeah, then we're fine. But Isaac, if they are still on the scores table and they have not moved to the L1, L2,
for that I would definitely I highly suggest to move to the new scores table, yes, because you will save around 40% of your space, which you will need for sure. So I would highly recommend to go through it.
Yeah. And at 81 million, do we want to go just with the automation, or should we open up a case? What do you think?
Either way, it's always highly suggested to test it in a non-production instance, so that you can see how long it takes the whole migration process, so that you can plan it during off hours. So having the case can help answer some questions, but if you try it in a non-production instance, you will understand the whole process. Or if you want to be safe or feel more secure, please raise a case, and our support engineers will help you throughout the process.
Okay, and if you search, so I'm going to put it into I'm going to try and put it in the chat for everyone. The link to the documentation on migration is right there. So if you are still using the level 1 or the PA scores table and not L1 and L2, take a look at the automated migration process. This is been new. Anybody, what do we have in here? All instances provisioned New York and later are already using it. So if your instance is only a couple years old, this is not an issue. But if your instance is 5-6 years old or older, then you may want to take a look at this to come through. It's all automated. And again, as Isaac said, if you want to open up a case to have us help you, it's fine. And if you want to do it by yourself, it's fine. Start in a subprod and then go from there. The documentation should explain it, but it's just better. The new architecture is just better.
Okay, great. Thank you, Adam and Isaac. We have a couple minutes, so I'm going to go through the rest of these slides real quick, and then we'll get things closed out. But first, thank you, Isaac, and for doing the demo and showing how simplistic flows are compared to other ways of doing things and those use cases. We really appreciate it. And of course, thank you, Adam, Dan, and Tara as well for your time, for being here to answer questions. So maybe we'll there we go. So these are the links that were used for most of this stuff, and also added the one that Adam did reference in the chat for the workflow, the flow designer and workflow automation tools. So that'll be there. It'll be in a PDF, so you'll be able to get that directly from the community. And as we close out, make sure that you're checking out the community. There should be a new look to it real soon. We're changing up the links there, so I'm just waiting for that to go in. And of course, this information will be out on the Platform Analytics Academy community page. This link will be out here, and all of the previous ones we had, and any of the future ones that we have. Remember that we have the pro tips out there. These are little quick hitter videos where we talk about just things around performance analytics, some really great topics. So check those out. Make sure that you're utilizing Now Learning. Just search for analytics. There's quite a bit of training that's out there. So make sure that you're checking that out to learn more about analytics. And of course, you can use it for everything, all ServiceNow. So anything in there you can check for. The PA Advanced course is now on demand. It wasn't in person, but now it is on demand. So you can take that. And as Adam was talking about before, these are all of the sessions for our sister session. So the Virtual Agent Academy for the one that we were talking to earlier, you can see that here. So make sure that you're checking that out as well. And again, it'll be in this PDF. And this is, some of you may have went to the old Zoom link. This is the new one that you'll actually want to go to. So again, this will be in the PDF. And as Adam and Tara did say, Knowledge 23 is coming May 14th through the 18th in Las Vegas. So be on the lookout for that. Start registering for that. And as Adam said, there will be some really great sessions as a whole, but we in Now Intelligence will be providing some really great sessions as well. So in 2 weeks, we'll be talking about ITSM on mobile. So if you are looking for that information, if that's something that you wanted to do or even just curious about it, please join us in 2 weeks. And as usual, thank you very much for joining. We really appreciate that you're spending your lunch or evening, whatever time it is, with us for this hour. And hopefully you're getting great things out of it. So we'll see you again in 2 weeks. And thank you for everyone that joined.